Good morning. I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for August 7th, 2025. Let me say at the outset that what I'm going to be talking about is that now is the time for diplomacy. The drift towards war is gaining momentum, especially as the collective West refuses to acknowledge that there is no way to defeat Russia in Ukraine. No matter how many weapons are poured in, no matter how many Ukrainians and Russians die, the danger of this course should be seen especially in the light of the commemorations of the nuclear attacks against Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which occurred 80 years ago this week. Are you willing to risk being incinerated in a nuclear war in order to protect a collapsing world order which benefits the billionaires and their military-industrial complex corporations, and not you? Is that the hope and dream that you live for? Now, hopefully you've taken advantage of the commemoration of the horrible catastrophes of 80 years ago to rethink the importance of a civilian response to the insanity of private special interests running government, and to realize the importance of a break with a paradigm that's under the control of those who see nuclear option as a way of protecting their interests. And so the message coming from the LaRouche Organization is join our mobilization. Now, we've prepared something which is uniquely timely, which is a petition to President Trump to join in a summit immediately with Presidents Putin and Xi of Russia and China to reach a diplomatic resolution, not just to the war in Ukraine and the genocide in Gaza, but toward establishing a new security architecture and a new development architecture which serves the interests of all sovereign nations on the planet. The petition includes the following statement. If the three presidents would attend the military parade on September 3rd, that's in Beijing commemorating the end of World War II, if the three presidents would attend the military parade and together renew the oath, never again, it would send the strongest message possible to the entire globe that a new era of peace will begin. Now, this is in the dreams of most people, except those who think permanent warfare is a great way to live. And in order to realize this, we must elevate diplomacy to take the place of threats and bullying. And the diplomacy is based on reaching agreements that are in the common interests of all nations and all mankind. The idea of a new security and development architecture based on realizing the mutual benefit for all nations. That must be in the national interest of each nation, and it should be in the personal goal of every citizen to act for the benefit of a future for our children and grandchildren, as well as to pay our respect to those who died in the past to try and make this a better world. Now, yesterday, there was a meeting between President Trump's envoy, Witkoff, with President Putin. And in that meeting, they discussed a summit to take place in the next days or weeks. Is it possible that Trump and Putin will meet? Well, they say yes. But it couldn't happen too soon because of the threats to that continue the war, the endless wars and the destruction of nations. Just as an example, the NATO-US warhawks are pushing for new weapons to Ukraine. There's a discussion of more of your tax dollars from the United States and tax dollars in European nations going into a futile effort to protect a government which has outlived its purposes. That is the dictatorship of Zelensky. Now, at the same time, there's more loose talk, a lot of it coming from the warhawks in the United Kingdom, of the use of tactical nuclear weapons against Russia. Chalmers, the former deputy director of RUSI, the Royal United Services Institute, who's now a top advisor to the British Minister of Defense, Chalmers said a tactical nuclear strike on a Russian military base would go a long way toward convincing the Russians to end the war. That kind of talk is insane. But it's also reflected from statements that you hear from U.S. military figures and unhinged senators such as Lindsey Graham and Wicker of Mississippi. Now, at the same time, you have an escalation of the trade war with sanctions and tariffs, targeting India, targeting China. The idea that President Trump initially said that tariffs should be used as part of an economic policy for the United States. Now it's being used as a war policy. This is an absolute disgrace to the tradition of the American system. And we'll be talking more about that in the days and weeks ahead. Now, you also have the threat from Netanyahu that there will be an Israeli military takeover of all of Gaza, more killing, preparation for the complete ethnic cleansing of Gaza, the driving of all Palestinians out of Palestine. And this is occurring in front of the eyes of the world. There's resistance from most nations to this. There are even voices now in France and the United Kingdom joining in voices with Israel, calling for the end of funding of the Israeli war machine, and some even calling for crippling sanctions against Israel. But what's going to stop it? The ball is in the court of the United States. Now, we have at the same time the attacks on the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who is under assault from the war hawks that she's identified as responsible for Russiagate. In order to help Gabbard in this and help President Trump to put away these networks that have been opposing his attempt to normalize relations with Russia, we've produced a white paper. This white paper is available in the link below, and it should be read and circulated widely as it identifies what is the real cause of Russiagate. Nothing that Trump did, nothing that Putin did, but the efforts of war hawks centered in the city of London to break the possibility of a U.S.-Russian normalization. A normalization which hopefully will be realized from the meetings taking place between Trump and Putin in the weeks ahead. So look at our white paper, read it, circulate it, make sure it gets out to people who need to know what's the fight that we're engaged in. What's the mafia that's committed to permanent warfare and permanent depression? So use the links that I am putting on the description page. Become part of the solution. The American Revolution was fought and created a tradition of citizen activism for the benefit of the entire nation, not leaving power in the hands of technocratic elite, a so-called establishment which arrogantly presumes to speak for the interests of you and your family while they're gorging themselves on luxury profits, traveling around the world and so on. They care not for you. Their talk of common interests doesn't go any further than their dining room table. The interests of Americans are now being pursued by the global majority. The BRICS, the SCO, these are our allies. And it's with collaboration with them that we can bring down the networks behind the Brennans and the Clappers and the Dearloves and the arrogant establishment which presumes to speak for you. So now is the time for diplomacy. Join with us, use the links we're providing, and become part of the solution. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to be traveling for the next few days, so I'll see you again next week. But we will have